Guys, what is going on? It is Michael here again today, and I am bringing you some more UFC Undisputed 3 gameplay. This is actually going to be my predictions for UFC Sweden, which happens tomorrow night, the 14th of April 2012. I will admit I completely forgot this was on tomorrow night. There hasn't been a big UFC event in a while, and I just totally forgot about it. But yeah, this is my predictions. I'm going to be predicting the 6 main card bouts, predicting the winner and the fight method. The 2 fights you'll be seeing on screen, the first one is the first fight I'm going to talk about, which is Brad Pickett versus Damacio Page, and the second fight will be Thiago Silva versus Brandon Vera. The main event is actually Alexander Gustafsson versus Thiago Silva, but as Alexander Gustafsson isn't in the game, I used Thiago Silva's last opponent, which is Brandon Vera. So yeah, first fight of the night on the main card is at £135 bantamweight. And it is 21-5 Brad Pickett against 12-6 Damacio Page. Both fighters are tough fighters. Damacio Page is predominantly a striker, but he also has a background in collegiate wrestling. And Brad Pickett is an English fighter, go on England, and he's very much a striker. He has a very strong striking base. His nickname is One Punch because he has very good knockout power for a bantamweight. And his ground game isn't bad either. It's not as good as his striking, but it's not bad. So for the first fight of the night, I am going to pick Brad Pickett by way of TKO because I think he has better striking than Damacio Page, and I don't think Damacio Page will use his wrestling because Damacio Page tends to like to make it a brawl and make it sort of a war. So I think he'll keep it standing, and I think Brad Pickett will TKO him or knock him out. So yeah, Brad Pickett TKO first fight. Second fight of the night is at £170, and it is 18-9 Demarcus Johnson versus 17-3 John Maguire. I'll admit I don't know much about John Maguire, but I'll go off his body type, and looking at his body type, he has the body type of a grappler. So I'm going to guess that he is a wrestler and maybe a jiu-jitsu artist. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's his first fight in the UFC or not, so I'm going to pick Demarcus Johnson for this. I think Demarcus Johnson is on a bit of a roll at the moment. He looks in great shape, and he's a very well-rounded fighter, good wrestler, good jiu-jitsu, and very fast. Very fast for 170 pounder and good strike. So I'm going to go with Demarcus Johnson, probably by decision, I think. Third fight of the night. This is going to be a good one. £145 featherweight division. It is 19-8 Dennis Siver making his featherweight debut against 17-2 Diego Nunes. This is going to be a war, and this is going to be my early pick for fight of the night. It's either going to be that or your main fight, the main event, Alexander Gustafsson versus Thiago Silva. But I'm going to go with this fight, picking it right here, right now, fight of the night. Dennis Siver, if you've never seen him fight before, he's a very short, stocky guy, very powerful striker, and he's a great kickboxer. He comes from like a weird sort of karate kickboxing background, uses a lot of front leg, like roundhouse kicks, and a lot of spinning back kicks. He holds 2 Knockout of the Night awards in the UFC for his spinning back kick knockouts. So he's a very short, stocky striker, and he's against another striker, Diego Nunes. Diego Nunes out of the Nova União camp, in Brazil, the same gym that Jose Aldo, amongst others, train at. And he is, they're almost like the new shooter box in Brazil. They're almost like the shooter box for the lower weight class fighters. All their fighters come and are just wildly aggressive strikers. Diego Nunes is no different. He is a very fast, very aggressive, very wild Muay Thai striker, throws a lot of kicks, a lot of flying knees, and a lot of sort of wing-looped punches. Overall, I think this is going to be an absolute barn burner of a fight, and I have no idea who's going to win. It'll be interesting to see how Dennis Siver makes the cut, and I think if that fight goes into the later rounds, I think that could make a difference. So I am going to go with Diego Nunes by decision, because I think Siver will fade in the later rounds, being his first fight at featherweight. Then we move on to the top 3 fights. The first one is at £170. It is 14-3, very well-rounded Paulo Thiago versing 24-1. 20 wins, 4 losses, and 1 draw. Sia Bahadazura, or however you pronounce that. He is making his UFC debut. Bahadazada, I think. Yeah, he's definitely making his UFC debut, but he is known within Europe as being a wild striker, and he has a very good record to back it up. However, Paulo Thiago is a UFC veteran and a very well-rounded fighter. He holds a knockout win over Josh Koscheck, a submission win over Mike Swick, amongst others. So he is a very well-rounded guy, very good black belt level on the ground, and good powerful striking as well. However, I think he might come a little bit unstuck against Bahadazada if he's a better striker. Paulo Thiago, although he's a good striker himself and got kind of a lucky knockout over Josh Koscheck, he doesn't have the striking of maybe Bahadazada. I think Paulo Thiago's way of winning this is taking the fight to the ground and trying to submit him, as he did with Mike Swick. You can never underestimate the fact that a UFC veteran is facing a newcomer. There are always going to be nerves with a new fighter stepping into the octagon for the first time, and I think that may play a bit of importance in this fight. And I'm going to pick Paulo Thiago by submission over Bahadazada, because I think being on quite high up on the main card for his UFC debut, I think is a big moment for him, and I think it'll be a lot of pressure. And I think Paulo Thiago, having been there so many times and been in big fights, I think he'll cope with it better. And if I had to pick, I'd say he is going to win by submission. Then we have the two main fights, the co-main event of the evening. At the middleweight division, 185 pounds, 11-4 Brian Stann faces the Italian 19-8 Alessio Legionarius Sakara. This will be a good fight, but I think, in all honesty, no offence to Alessio Sakara, I think it's a bit of a mismatch. Alessio Sakara is a good striker, that's what he brings to the table. He is a former professional boxer and quite high level striker, but he's facing Brian Stann, who I just think is more well-rounded. I think Brian Stann is also a very good striker, but he also has that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling base to fall back on. Plus, I think, and this will be the big thing in this fight, I think he has a much better chin than Alessio Sakara. Alessio Sakara has almost become sort of infamous now for having a weak chin. He has been knocked out by quite a few people, and it generally only takes 1 or 2 shots. I think if Brian Stann lands on Alessio Sakara's chin, that will be night-night, and I'm going to pick Brian Stann by knockout, because I think that's exactly what will happen. I think Sakara will go in there thinking he's the better striker, and I think he'll get cracked by Brian Stann, and I think Brian Stann will win by knockout. And this takes us on to the main event of the evening. 205 pounds, light heavyweight division. 14-2 Thiago Silva against the Swede in Sweden. 13-1 Alexander the Mauler Gustafsson. This is an interesting fight for a couple of reasons. One, the opponents have been chopped and changed for Gustafsson, and Thiago Silva, although he's had a couple of months to prepare, he's still a newer opponent. But Thiago Silva, this will be his first fight out after almost a year out of the UFC, after he tested positive for a banned substance. He gave an incorrect urine sample to the Athletic Commission, a non-human urine sample, and he accepted the year ban. And this will be his first fight back in over a year. His last fight, it was against Brandon Vera, which is the fight you're seeing on the screen. He dominated Brandon Vera over 3 rounds, but then that fight was changed to a no contest due to the fact that he tested positive for a banned substance. So overall, I think that could play a big part in this fight. First fight in, nearly 18 months. He could be a bit rusty, and Alexander Gustafsson has been on a roll recently, most recently knocking out the tough veteran Vladimir Matyushenko in a couple of minutes. And overall, I think this will be an interesting fight. I'm not sure if it's a 3-round or a 5-round main event. Hopefully it's 5 rounds, that I think will be a good fight. I think the longer this fight goes, the better it is for Gustafsson. He has very good striking, he's a very long rangey guy, and he will have a reach advantage on Thiago Silva. However, Thiago Silva is an incredibly powerful guy, and in the first couple of rounds, Thiago Silva will throw everything he has at Gustafsson. If Gustafsson can survive those first 2 rounds, I think he takes this by decision. But it's whether he can survive the first couple of rounds against Thiago Silva with his wild, aggressive striking and ridiculous knockout power. So, prediction for the main event. If the fight lasts less than 2 rounds, then I'm going to say Thiago Silva by knockout. If it goes longer than 2 rounds, I'm going to say Gustafsson by decision. And there you go, guys. That is my predictions for UFC Sweden tomorrow night. 14th of the 4th, 2012. Hope you all tune in and watch it. Thanks, guys, and enjoy the event tomorrow.